Welcome back to the Randi Hipper Show. I am your host today on a lovely Monday with a major announcement, everybody. I am officially joining the Florida Business Blockchain Association, or FBBA. And to discuss this with me is none other than the founder, Samuel Arms. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Good. What is going on, Randy? Happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to get everything going and have you join the team and getting ready to get political and advocate and all the fun stuff we talk about all the time.
Absolutely. And I just love what you've been doing, but we're going to rewind a little bit and get to know you a little bit because you are younger. You're on the younger side. How you're 28, right?
Yes.
So we're a part of this Gen Z push to get crypto moving in the United States. So tell us about your early 20s when you were getting into college. What did you think you were going to do with your life?
Man, what a great question. I had no idea what I was going to do in my life, but like my Bitcoin origin story started actually in like 2013, 2014. I had a buddy of mine introduce me to Bitcoin in like middle school, high school. And of course, right, like no money. So it's not like, hey, I invested early and now I'm a Bitcoin millionaire. But like I knew about it, I studied it a little bit, and it got me really interested in like all the ideas that you talk about all the time, like monetary policy, fiscal policy, Austrian economics, so that when I went to university, my degree was literally economics. So I studied economics, took that very seriously, was like a big fan of the Bitcoin like idea and the movement behind it. And then when I came out of school for economics, my senior year, this is in like 2017, I had this realization that you have all these Bitcoin and crypto companies and no one really advocating for them on the government level.
Yeah.
And so I noticed this huge gap, not only with government understanding it, but none of my crypto buddies understood at all how government worked. Right. And so I was like, well, someone's got to do that. So I traveled all around the state of Florida my senior year and missed a bunch of classes doing so, and organized different meetups with different localities in the state of Florida and said, hey guys, let's start getting involved politically. Let's get started and push momentum up to Tallahassee because I'm a passionate Floridian. I want to see Florida do the best. And I want businesses to come here. I want the businesses that are already here to thrive. And literally within a year of starting FBBA and doing that tour around the state, we passed our first bill. And that was the like blockchain task force bill, which at the time was like this huge deal. We were like, oh my gosh, you're talking about blockchain in the capital. It wasn't doing jack. Like there was no substantive anything. It was literally like, we're going to make a committee and we're just going to say, hey, world, we're interested in learning about whatever this blockchain Bitcoin stuff was. Because also in 2017, it was still, if you remember that hype cycle where people were like, Bitcoin's cool, but it's actually about the blockchain or whatever. And
Yeah.
so right, remember, and it's so cringe now, right? But at the time, like if Bitcoin was still like this was like the 1 grand to 20 grand rally. And so it was just starting to get like real public notice, that first wave, I guess, of post adoption. And so we couldn't do a Bitcoin task force. We had to do a blockchain task force. But that helped lay the foundation to then pass the 6 other bills that we've passed ever since. Right. And so it's funny just looking back and being like, man, that was so dorky. And I actually took a lot of heat from the community for even using the word blockchain because people were like, hey, like we really want to push Bitcoin. But I was like, guys, you got to understand, we got to meet politicians where they're at.
Yeah.
Right. And to me, a win is a win. And that helped us literally get the House, the Senate, the entire governor's office. Like DeSantis had just won his election. And like he was like, okay, now I know what Bitcoin is. So it was really, really a cool period. So that's a super condensed form of what we've done over the years. And I think what's been great is we've had a lot of people like yourself kind of become Floridians and like help us push this fight now. We've had a lot of people come to our state. And now it's about building the momentum, but then also your specialty, which is raising awareness and having people know, like, hey, this is what we're doing. Because so much happens underground that kind of needs to be exposed and brought to light. And it's good because a lot of people feel helpless, right? And they're like, man, that's something that I wish I could do, wish I could participate in. And it's actually a lot easier than you think as you're starting to learn, if you haven't figured it out long before, right? That it's like, hey, you can just do things,
Yep.
right? You can literally get in front of it. Like literally, I mean, it's your whole career. You literally get in front of a camera. I can just talk about this stuff. I can go on freaking Fox News and literally educate the masses. You can do whatever you want to do. And that includes with us in politics. You can just show up to the Capitol, make friends. You can just write legislation. I don't have a law degree. I don't need a law degree. You just need to know what you're doing and know what you're talking about. And you just do stuff. And that's pretty awesome.
Exactly. And how do you think your economics degree like paid off in relation to what you're doing now?
That's a really good question. I mean, economics is a really interesting field. I'll tell you one thing. One, it was useful because economics, I think, kind of teaches you how to think conceptually really well. Economics is the marriage of math and writing, right? So people are
Yep.
either good at writing and bad at math, or good at math and bad at writing. And economics is both because you have to literally write about math. And so beyond just teaching me like the real basics of, okay, classical and Keynesian economics, and of course me as a student, like, okay, why are they wrong, right? Like no one teaches Austrian economics, right? So I was fortunate enough to already have that kind of Austrian mindset, so I could learn what these other economic theories were and really have a good understanding of, oh, that's why this does or does not work. So it really helped me get better at explaining and understanding the current system, like the Federal Reserve, because it's one thing to come from the Austrian approach and understand, okay, I don't like the Federal Reserve, but to learn all the pro arguments for it and like why people think it's good and understanding their perspective helped me translate my Bitcoin background even better and kind of help build bridges to really, now that I understand how the other side thinks, I can communicate and kind of sell them better on what I think.
And what was the process of you getting involved in politics to begin with and touring around the state? How did you make that happen? And why even like take the time to, like you said, to ditch your classes? Why was it worth it for you?
Man, at the time I have no idea. You know, like when I was originally doing it, like I come from a very political family. So my dad and mom were always talking about politics around the dinner table. My dad was a big Ron Paul guy. They would take us to like political rallies and stuff like that. So politics was one of those things in my family that was always very present. And
Hmm.
so I was always very interested. And one of the reasons I actually enjoyed my economics degree was economics is very political, right? Every bill that we pass in Congress has economics behind it, whether that's just BS marketing or there is something intentional. So economics is, as a field, a political field, and I've always loved politics. And so when I kind of had the idea, I'd worked for a lobbying firm. Like throughout my career in college, every semester I got a different job, and that's kind of where like my real education came from. And one of those jobs was I worked at a law firm, I worked at a lobbying firm, I worked for a representative. And so I kind of took all those connections and all that knowledge, kind of studied how the system worked, and thought to myself, like, okay, no one else is doing this. There's a gap in the market. I can do this. And I was able to talk to some of my professors and be like, hey, I'm going to try starting a business. Are you okay if I miss a class or two? And just being upfront with them. And some of them were cool with it, some of them were not. And either way, I skipped the class and just had to make up the work. And maybe I got a B instead of an A or whatever. But I just knew, I was like, if I don't do this now, like I couldn't see myself working in a cubicle, right? Or in
Absolutely,
a normal
yeah.
job. And now it's even crazy to think about because you think of people like you and I, like, I don't think I've ever been, it's been so long. I don't think I've ever been in like an office job. I just can't imagine it. My first part of my career, my car was my office because I was
Yep.
always on the road talking to people. So looking back, it's easy to say that, but in the middle of it, I had no idea what the hell I was doing, right? I was like, okay, like I think I know I can do this. Let's just try it. And then somehow I'm on the, House and Senate floor and everyone's voting yes on my bill. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like I would
That's
have never
insane.
expected that to happen.
I can't imagine the feeling. And why choose Florida? Why didn't you go to Texas? Why didn't you go to any other state? Why'd you stay here? Why was the promise in Florida?
Yeah, that's also an interesting question. Part of it was just I love the state, right? Like I'm a water guy. I couldn't see myself being like anywhere else. This is where like my roots were. And part of it is, I've really been fortunate in that my career has aligned with like a Florida renaissance, right? Like ever since DeSantis got elected, our state has become really cool, right? We've had an
True.
influx of young people,
That's why I
right? Like
came
it's
here. I'm not
yeah,
joking.
right. Like it's kind of weird to think about, but my career has aligned with Florida becoming one of the coolest spots in the US to live. And for young people to come here, for businesses to come here. And then, of course, the big feature was everything that happened in the years of 2020 and 2021. And we were still able to live our lives. And it created all this momentum that then kind of created this counterculture. And Bitcoin and crypto were kind of a part of that counterculture, right? So now it just became you're fighting this overall narrative, but crypto and Bitcoin was about also fighting that narrative. And so you had all these health people moving down, you had all these medical people moving down, and then they were all like, oh, wow, we're just now getting debanked. And us crypto people are like, yeah, welcome to the club. We've been getting debanked since like 2017, like
Exactly.
so we're able to like feed into this. And so now Florida's just, I mean, you've seen it expand and grow. So now I can't imagine leaving because now, like, if you look at our political power in the White House, there's a really good article talking about part of the reason our foreign policy has become so Western Hemisphere and South American centric is a lot of Trump's cabinet is people from Florida.
Yep.
And South America is in the Florida mindset because of where do all of our immigrants come from? Venezuela, Colombia, Brazil, Cuba. Like that is a big part of being our Floridian is understanding like Miami is the gateway to South America. So we're just having, I think, this Floridian moment. It's kind of like being in California in the 90s, where I think things here are just awesome. So I can't imagine leaving at least anytime within the decade.
And speaking to politicians is very difficult, but you managed to get a hold of Ron DeSantis. What was that conversation like when you brought up Bitcoin and crypto? Because as you know, and if people in the chat don't already know, Ron DeSantis is very pro Bitcoin and anti central bank digital currency, which is obviously a huge win and helps us in our mission with the bills we want to pass. But we'll get to that in a moment. How was that conversation with Ron?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the highlights of my career was getting the anti-central bank digital currency bill passed here, which
So
it's
amazing.
funny because now is kind of irrelevant in that I don't think it was as big, it's as big as a fear now as it was maybe 2 years ago when we passed the bill, as trends kind of come and go. But that was a really serious conversation and a really serious threat. And at the time, people were like, you can't do that. You can't pass that. Like states can't do that. And my response was, let's find out. Right?
Yeah,
Fine, sue
exactly.
us. Like, yeah, like F around and find out. And you have to have that attitude. And so when we approached DeSantis with this, everything's in context in politics, right? And so that was also at a time when DeSantis was potentially going to run for president. And he was like, how do I get my name known? How do I get my ID out there? Because I'm going to make a presidential run. And this bill, we told him, we were like, hey, if you push and pass this bill, you're going to become a star in the United States,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Everyone's going to talk about it. And it's exactly what happened. They told us out of every bill that session, they got more calls in support of our anti-central bank digital currency bill than they did any bills with guns, any bills that had to do with like pro-life, pro-choice stuff, like very controversial issues that you would think, like just name any controversial issue, healthcare, immigration. They got more calls on our bill than any other bill.
That's
And so they were
insane.
like, it is insane, right? They were like, holy crap, you were right. And so having that conversation was at first like, hey, you need to take a bet on us and you need to push this because it's going to repay you dividends. And they did. And it did. It paid off very well for their marketing to the point where soon after that, 16 other states literally like, hey, Sam, can we copy and paste that? And I literally just sent them the bill. They copy and pasted it. And then it was in Texas, North Carolina, Montana, South Dakota, South Carolina. It was just like everywhere. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And we did that just doing that from here, right? So just what we
Exactly.
did in Florida had a
A domino
national
effect.
impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was like, saying on my podcast earlier today was that like if you start something somewhere, then it spreads. And especially when you look at how this country works, like the states represent the people. And if the people speak, then the whole government, like the federal level, will join in. So if Florida starts reigniting the spark for a Bitcoin strategic reserve, then you imagine other states are going to hop back on that train. And then on the federal level, we might officially establish that because I feel like it's a little wishy washy right now. But what bills do we want to pass? Let's dive into that. First, of course, the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, which is like almost the star of the show. How do you feel about that? How would that be structured in the state of Florida?
So that we're looking very good. So I always tell people we tried to push the bill last year. It failed not due to the actual bill itself, but for political reasons. And when I say political reasons, it means maybe there was competition between the bill sponsor and the governor. Maybe there was some infighting. Maybe they just couldn't garner the votes. So when you're looking at passing legislation, is the actual bill good? And then is it politically viable? What is the demand, the pressure? And so, unfortunately, last year kind of got caught up between some BS political fighting, which par for the course, part of the job, it happens. But this year, we don't have that same political fighting we had last year. And we were actually able to essentially get the bill, tons of marketing. Like, even it's great because even the politicians who don't know have kind of figured out this is a good thing. So, for a little while, it was very partisan. Republicans would vote yes, Democrats would vote no for no other reason than, oh, if Republicans like it, we're not going to like it. But last year, you can find it in one of the recordings on the Florida channel. We had a Democratic, I think it was a Democratic senator, a really nice older Black woman. She represents, I think, a district down in Miami. And she said, I don't understand it. I can't like figure out why this is important. But what I know is my grandson talks about this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And I want to be on the side of my grandson. This seems to be the future. So, and she says it, she's like, I know I don't get it, but I don't want to get in the way of what my grandson's generation is going to do. And she voted yes on our bill.
Yep.
Right.
Sometimes they feel the pressure because they know that it's just something they don't get. And this is what I want to stress to the chat and everybody watching is that it's not a left versus right thing that we're doing. We're not a right wing, association. We're not a left wing association. This is literally just a group of people that care about the industry that want to push this forward. And we want because without the left, then obviously, then we can't pass the votes. If we don't have the right, we can't pass. Like we need to be able to have both sides. This is a collective type thing. This
Yep.
isn't left versus right at all. So I want to stress that like so much.
Yeah. And like that's my job is to play that game. Right. My job is to like politicians, and a lot of people get upset about this, but it's true. Like a politician doesn't need to really understand Bitcoin, right? Because they have so many things on their plate. All you need the politician to do is vote yes and get out of the way.
Yep.
Right now, is it good to educate them and really understand? Of course it is, because when you understand Bitcoin, it creates a lot of good knowledge that you can apply to other fields in your life. Like you want them ideologically on your side. But some of them, like with this lady, hey, your grandson's for it, right? She might never understand it, but she votes yes because she gets that her grandson gets it. Some people just want to say or want to hear, hey, this is good for jobs. Hey, this is good for marketing. And if they go, okay, I might not get it, but if it's going to bring jobs and Floridians like it, that's all I need to know, right? Because that's what they're there to do. So don't stress so much about, do they really understand it? They're going to say stupid stuff all the time. They're going to be on
Exactly.
Twitter and they're going to be like, oh, I love Bitcoin and I love this crypto. And then they're going to say, I also love the US dollar. And they're going to say things that you don't like. As long as they vote yes on the thing that you want to get pushed, that's all you want them to do. That's all you can ask for.
Yep. We just want this done because obviously they know the pressure's on with Bitcoin and crypto. It was a huge thing, during the 2024 election. That's all anybody talked about was this industry. I think we were really the decision makers, to be honest. And we just wanted someone that had our back. So I know these politicians, if they want to get reelected, if they want to stick around, they're going to have to go towards what people want. So the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve is like our number one. Number two, and this is obviously like the star of the cycle, this or the narrative this time around is stable coins. What are we doing with stable coins? Break that down.
Yeah, so since the big stablecoin bill was passed in Congress, essentially, for those familiar, we have a dual banking system, right? It makes the US very unique. We have federal banks and we have state chartered banks, right? And the two are supposed to be equal. That's kind of changed a little bit over time, unfortunately. But it means states can regulate banks and the federal government can regulate banks, and states have authority to have control over financial services within their own boundaries. The stablecoin bill created a big federal regulatory environment so that if you are a very big stablecoin bill and you want to do business with the United States, go ahead and do it. But what it left out purposefully was regulations around what the states can do. So now the states need to come in and create a licensing regime so that stablecoin companies, if they don't meet the federal requirements, can at least operate within the state. So you might be a company in the state of Florida and you might say, well, hey, I don't have $10 billion worth of, assets to get the federal license. I have 8 billion, but I'm out of reach of the federal license. What can I do? Well, there's no license for you to apply for. So you're still kind of in this limbo. So what we want to do in Florida is we want to say, okay, if you meet every federal requirement except that asset requirement, you should be able to have a license. Right.
Yeah.
So we want companies that are like right on that edge to be able to freely operate. And what if you only have $1 million in assets, but you still want to create your own stable coin? You should be able to do that in Florida. Right. So
Yep.
we want Florida to be a financial hub. Stable coins are the future, especially for payments and payment processing. I think stable coins help promote Bitcoin and are good for the overall ecosystem as long as they're done correctly, right? Because some people think about stable coins and they still get into the CBDC narrative, which I'm aware of. And I think is always good to keep like at the forefront to ensure we're not allowing authoritarian money, but efficient money
Exactly.
is a good thing, right? I like efficient money. I don't like authoritarian money. Stable coins, when done correctly, are efficient money. And I want Florida to be the capital of efficient finance. So we want to pass regulation. When I say regulation, some kind of framework here in the state of Florida so that these companies are motivated to come here and we attract that business and that intellectual capital.
Absolutely. And we want Americans to have a safe place to be. And I feel like Operation Choke Point 2.0 scared a lot of people to even on the state level, on the national level. Oh, like the United States in general, we have to rule out because we just can't be here. They won't let us be here.
Yep.
But to open those doors in Florida is very important because, again, once we do it, everyone else is going to want to FOMO in after that. So this is about sparking something. And I really wanted to stress that as well. What other bills do you want to discuss today with the audience? While we have
Those
them.
two are the main ones. A lot of what we do is actually kind of boring in that it's defensive. We have a Bitcoin ATM bill that is potentially coming to Florida, and we're always kind of fighting back and forth and making sure that's not harming the industry. It's nothing exciting unless you're in that industry, but it shows you that, we have the hype cycles, we have what's important, what's on the forefront, but a lot of what we do is also maintaining what we do have.
Yep.
And you have big banks and big financial institutions that, when things get quiet, come and try to sneak under the radar and pass regulation to the point where by the time you realize what's happening, they've already garnered a foothold and are pushing bills that are very bad for the industry. So a lot of what we're doing is consistent education year after year. Every 2 years we have elections. Every 2 years, about 20 to 30% of the Florida legislature is new, which means they have to be re-educated if they don't know about what we're doing already, and continue to fight the good fight, because every inch and foot we move forward, they're still pushing back. I mean, you're just seeing now at the federal level that Coinbase is reneging on some of their support for the Clarity Act,
Oh, yeah.
or the market structure bill that they're trying to push forward. The big banks are targeting it as well. Same old story that we've been hearing the past, I don't know, decade. That does not stop. So we have to, even when it's kind of boring, continue to push the envelope and secure our ability to make sure that we're passing legislation that's good, that's sound, and stops people in the future from attacking us.
And I think that we're laying out the groundwork for not only now, but I believe the next generation. Because I think a Bitcoin strategic reserve, I don't even know if we'll feel the full effects of it, but I definitely know the next generation will. So this is also very important for sound money and freedom for the state of Florida. So that way, like when we have our kids here, they're going to prosper and it's going to be like a beautiful place, especially again, because we're going to promote stable coins, which again, I've been saying on my podcast, if we have stable coins in the United States, it just establishes the economic like superiority of the United States in general. So we just need to have Florida really embrace all of that. And I'm super bullish on it. But we have some things that we got to take care of, which is funding. So let people know where we're at with that. And we have a goal ourselves here, which is what I created the PayPal link for. So take it away.
Yeah, so our goal this legislative session for Florida is to raise $100,000 to push for all the legislation that we're talking about. Legislation does cost money. Where does it cost money? One of the biggest costs is actually just hiring the attorneys to make sure we're not stupid and putting something in law that is bad. As they always say, no law is better than a bad law, right? So we are really critical and concerned about making sure the legislation that we push is worded correctly. You'd be surprised how much time is spent on just definitions, right? How do you define Bitcoin? How do you define blockchain? How do you define all that stuff? And it gets expensive. We're a nonprofit. So a lot of our money goes to attorneys. A lot of our money, when needed, goes to lobbyists. What do the lobbyists do? They might have relationships that we don't have.
Yep.
I'll get a phone call in the middle of session saying, hey, so-and-so is voting no on your bill. And I have to figure out who do they like? Who are they friends with? Who do I have to pay to get them over the edge if they're the deciding vote? Right. And a lot of it just goes to fund operations. Sometimes that's donating to campaigns. Sometimes it's funding us to go to Tallahassee and travel and actually meet with these people one-on-one. It's the nonprofit world. When we're not passing legislation, we're raising money so that we can continue to do so. And every year we hit a new marker for what we're trying to push in Florida legislative wise. This year, our marker is $100,000 to try to push these bills and keep that momentum going forward.
Absolutely. So you guys have the PayPal link in the description, in the live chat as well. I'm going to be posting on X in a little bit to make this announcement official, as it already is. We're live streaming, but we're going to do another post because people need to announce it on Twitter. It's a thing. So we're going to keep doing this, but essentially, guys, we want to fund travel. We want to get to Tallahassee. We want to get to that state capital and speak to these legislators. It is in our hands, and we like to leave our computers. We want to be more than internet warriors. We want to like hit the scene, boots on the ground, and make a difference. This is a Gen Z push. This is the next generation establishing ourselves, because again, the people that are in government right now, they are not going to pay the consequences of bad legislation. We are. So we're trying to save ourselves so that way we could save our children and the next generation and the generation after that. So with that, I thank you guys so much for tuning in today. This was a short podcast, but we wanted it to be concise, informational, and everything you need to know about FBBA. If you want to know more about it, FBBA.com is the way, FBBA.io is the way to go. Also, there are newsletters. There's a contact us page if you want to go and sign up, get those notifications. There's ways to donate directly to FBBA on the website. Also, my PayPal link, so you know you're donating just to me, and then I will issue it back to FBBA. But either way, we are going to raise that money. We are going to get after it, and we are going to change not only the state of Florida, but the United States and the entire world. Sam, anything you want to let the audience know before we head out of here?
No, that is the perfect ending. Beautifully said. Any support you guys give, we appreciate. Randy, I'm looking forward to going to Tallahassee with you in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, we got a 2-month period to now push, so I'm sure we'll be up there more than once. So looking forward to it.
Me too. Thank you guys so much. I will see you guys tomorrow for the Daily Zest at 9:45 a.m. Eastern. Have a lovely day and see you soon. Bye.